It's troubling to say the least. But we have, what is this? We're not even in year one of Trump, so it's not exactly going to get so much better.
That Twitter feed is ran by a colored woman.
Oh, Jimmy Christmas. That's just, speaking of depressing, that's depressing. That's depressing. It's like when I heard Obama, it was, I think a week or two before he left office, and he gave, it was like a farewell Obama on BET or something. And he's quoting George Washington and praising him. What the hell? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, colonization is what it is, but it's tough to see when you see it. Praising horrible people and adhering to systems and ideologies and beliefs that aren't ours and that have done nothing but harm us for 5 centuries. It's just depressing, to use the D word again. We're killing ourselves with our own ammunition. Democrat, Republican. It's one thing, and one thing that kind of set me off yesterday, I'll be honest. Speaking of people of color, there was a black man, I think his name is Clint Smith. He's a very intelligent man.
Yes, he has a colleague.
Yeah. He was shaming. It's been a norm in America for a while. If you don't vote, you're a part of the problem. Or if you don't vote, you shouldn't be able to talk about anything in the country. And I've seen him say other things that support that are of support of the system. And apparently, someone's listening to the show while we're.
I think it's Tim, our producer. It's not muted.
That someone's listening to it while they're doing it. Who's the narcissist on the show? That's
right.
But back to my little story. So I've seen Clint say some things in support of a party or the system. It's kind of interesting and hypocritical for a lot of us who are either activists, revolutionaries, intellectuals, etc., to quote part, and white people do this more than anybody, to quote part of our ancestors and then leave everything else out, because that's too radical. We don't want to go that far down the rabbit hole of revolution. We still want to adhere to the system and try to fix the system from within and only go that route. Because it's one thing, it's one thing to vote. That's okay, vote. Obviously, as we saw in this election, so many different candidates that are a million times better than the other, especially on the state level and the city level. But then it's another thing to bend over backwards to defend this system and shame others who either don't participate in voting or see the harm that clamoring to the system does. There are many black people who still believe Abraham Lincoln freed us. And I was reading Gerald Horne, who is, in terms of smart and intelligence and wit, it's hard to find someone better than him. He is a great teacher of history and the hidden history of the United States and black history. And I was just reading how deep Abraham Lincoln's wish to deport black people from the United States and the entire black population, how deep it went. He was negotiating with the Haitians to deport all of us to Hispaniola. And yet, to this day, you have black politicians, black professors, black citizens who see Abe Lincoln as a hero. In fact, I can't remember what the name of this organization was because I was so upset when I read this, I probably blocked out the name of it. But Nat Turner is getting a statue. I think it's in Virginia. And God bless them for it. But the same organization on their website talks about how great a man Abraham Lincoln was and how Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King are on the same level of, good versus evil, and the same level of good and what they've done for black people. All you have to do is read Abraham Lincoln's own words when he debated Stephen Douglas in the 1858 debate. He said how little he thought of us. He said we should never, ever, ever be teachers or doctors or lawyers, let alone ever touch white women. And yet we still think of him as a hero. The President of the United States, who was black, talked up George Washington, who made us sleep two to a rock-hard bed with nothing on us but a germy cover, or on the floor in the very, very cold Virginia winters. The same George Washington who killed Native children and women and skinned Native people alive. But that's where my annoyance is coming from since, I guess, yesterday morning, because, of course, the polls open early in the morning, as they did on Tuesday. But trying to look on the bright side. It's the way that transgendered people are treated in the world and in this country. You can't understate what happened yesterday. And I'm very glad that I didn't realize it was that many. I only thought it was 2. But the wins that community got yesterday are huge. Just huge. And that's great. And we got a black man from the motherland as the mayor of Helena, Montana. He arrived in Helena 23 years ago. How about that?
Montana is less than 0.41% black, so that is more amazing than most people realize.
Wilmot Collins, way to go, brother. Way to go. And on that color scheme, talking about color, you were posting something before the show about how Hollywood is controlled by white men. And
I think I post something every day about Hollywood is controlled by white men. Sure. But yeah, the only reason it came up again today is that Washington posted an article on it yesterday, which was a quite good article. I can post it in the chat and tweet out again. But it was titled How White TV Writers Decide the Stories Hollywood Tells America. And I have a big focus on media, obviously, so I do the show and in my classroom. And so it caught my eye that it was in the news again. That's all. It's good. It needs to be in the news as much as possible, consistently. It needs to be discussed until it changes. But I was posting the graphs that came in the article about how many black writers are in Hollywood writers' rooms today. And you've got 65.4% of writers' rooms that have 0 black writers, 17.3% that have 1 black writer, and 17.3% that has 2 or more black writers. Which is actually pretty, if we're just looking now, see, that's just looking at writers as a whole and how many is in the rooms. If we go to how many people of color are in Hollywood writers' rooms, we see that 86.3% are white, and that is an overrepresentation because only 63% of the population is white. And then you get 4.8% is black, which is an underrepresentation. That's 13% of the population is black. And then 8.9% as other people of color, which is a very low representation, considering what, 30%, 63, 73, 25% more should be if we're going to look at the actual representation of, you've got almost 18% Hispanic, 4.4% Asian, 2% Native, and then that's not even counting multiracial. And then what is the race of showrunners in Hollywood? And I need to figure out exactly, I guess, would be running the show, right? That would be who's the head of the show, director, maybe? It's interesting. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. Need to go into more detail on that. Okay. So you get like Jeff Bezos, who's the founder and chief executive of Amazon, owns the Washington Post, things like that. So 91% of those that, well, pretty much own Hollywood is white. 5.1% would be black, running the show. 3.9% is other people of color. So just interesting stats that came with this. I love stats. I'm a teacher. It's what I do.
Stats don't lie.
And then networks that exclude black writers. Oh, I don't know if you saw. I'm sure you did if you saw it, because I was posting it and you got it. 90+% of shows with no black writers or just one. The networks are Netflix, Amazon, CBS, and the CW. 100% of shows with no black writers or just one is Hulu, AMC, Showtime, and TBS. Networks with a, quote, black problem, meaning that they have, it says CBS and CW are who they name, include women and people of color writers, but not black writers. Both are troubling. CBS is the most watched network. CW excludes black voices while targeting the most diverse young generation in history. Out of the combined 40 shows on CBS and CW, there was only one person of color showrunner. And then it actually goes into it in more detail. It says the CW, looking at 15 shows, there are 2 that have women writers, 2 that have non-black people of color writers, 2 that have, I think I'm reading. Oh, no, less than that. Okay. Then there's 1 that has a black writer, and there's no showrunners. Same thing with CBS. I don't like the way they've done that graph. It's quite confusing. And if I look at graphs every day and get confused, I can imagine those that don't have to deal with this every day. And then lastly, do crime procedural shows exclude black writers? Out of 9 different crime procedural shows, so, like the old CSI, I don't know if CSI is even still on, I don't watch them, or NCIS, but, shows that are focusing on police, which are very highly watched in the U.S., which then also leads to a significant amount of stereotypes and an overrepresentation of black individuals being arrested, which leads to this kind of idea of black on black crime and no talk of white on white crime. It says that 3 out of the 9 crime procedural shows have no black writers. 5 out of the 9 have 1 black writer, and 1 out of the 9 has 2 black writers. So it's interesting to look at.
That reminds me of a conversation I had yesterday. I don't know if I sent you the conversation because it made me laugh while I was having it.
It was yesterday. I was probably, because I worked like 12 hours on Tuesday, so I may not have got it. I mean, I probably got it. I just haven't looked. I'm not even going to lie.
Right.
Tuesday was a long day.
I don't know if you've heard of Michael Wood Jr.
Yeah.
Okay. A former Baltimore police officer who is allegedly a white ally. I asked him a question. I kind of posed him a question. And somebody tweeted back at me something I posted about police. They said, if most police are honest, why do they never out the crooked cops? It's not like they know who the bad apples are. So I don't follow him anymore for a reason, which I'll explain in a second. So I quoted the tweet and I said, I call Michael A. Wood Jr. to the witness stand because I actually wanted to know what he thought about this. And then this led to him going, if you have all the answers, go fucking fix it. That's a direct quote. Now, this is, of course.
I did see that conversation when you sent it. I remember clicking it.
Mm-hmm. So this is a former white police officer who says that he's now on our side, telling a black man to fix the problems that white people created and still maintain for us. And he was a part of that and stayed quiet during that time and still stays quiet about the people he worked with. And he also said to me, your position is on the asshole side. That's clear. Or your position on the asshole side is clear. Later, I'm done with games. And then he shows his true colors. Because I said, wait a minute, you just told a black man to fix a problem that y'all caused, but I'm the asshole. We didn't invent our own slave and native slash, as they called them then, Indian patrols, in quotes. Then he goes, my entire chain of command was black people. I was entirely ordered by black people. And then the two words, shut up. Shut up, black man. Let me handle this. Even though I was the one slamming your face to the concrete. I'll fix it my way, quietly, and not really fix it. And pretend I'm fixing it, and then try to get credit. If you're not giving me credit, I'm upset. That's sadly how most white allies are. And mistakenly, I didn't even mean to. I outed him. I stopped following him because our friend of the show, Tracy, Viva La Diva Tracy on Twitter, she told me, hey, I saw her talking about it on Twitter. This guy he's not outing anybody. He's not being fully honest about what he saw as a cop and the things he didn't say anything about as a cop. I'm like, dang, you're right. So I unfollowed him after that. But then, of course, the true colors came out last night, and Glenn had a question for us, I think me, because I was talking about Mr. Obama. Glenn, who, of course, is on the People's Weekly every Friday on People's Radio United. And he also has a show, I think it's called The View From Up Here, of course, Canada. That's on Blog Talk Radio. As a part of People's Radio United. Anyways, the question was, we have seen the ultimate build-up via visual and labeling with Obama, and fuck all changed so. What if these minority candidates elected will be more of the same? Well, as we were discussing before, on the state and city level, they could do something. And I think on the last show, as Gal and I said, we have witnessed and met and know politicians and people of color who are politicians on the state and local level who actually actively try to help our communities. So in that aspect, yes. So the all the folks that we mentioned before early on the show, they can do a lot of damage, and I really hope they do. But just repeating myself over and over. But once you hit that Washington level, it's game over. It's like a vortex. It just steals your soul, and you're a slave to Hollywood. Well, of course, Obama. There's your, Uncle Tom reference. But back to the cop issue with TV and shuts. Somebody made a great comment. I can't remember who they were because I want to give them credit for it. It was like a month or so ago on Twitter. They said that, look, Ice-T became a police officer. Ice-T, the original gangster, the original OG, the OG became a cop. Law and Order. He's playing one. I'm going overboard with the comparison, but he's playing a cop on television. So that tells, young black men, hey, cops are cool. Come join the police force. Of course, the hero complex, of cops and American law enforcement and the military that's absolutely ginormous with television and movies. There's a show on CBS. It's called SEAL Team. David Borealis, the guy from
You were
Angel.
right. Borealis.
It's just sad because it sounds like the Northern Lights, right?
Yeah.
But he's the star, and in reality, SEAL Team 6, which of course the show's based on, was done the worst possible things imaginable to civilians. Yet they're heroes because, you watch TV and music on this show can be very enthralling, suck you in, get you into the story, have you rooting for the soldiers. That's why I stopped watching The Blacklist, to be honest with you. And James Spader's as talented as anybody as an actor, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I can't root for the FBI. I can't do this. I can't do this. Me and I'm not going to say names, but I've been followed by the feds as recently as Sunday. So I can't watch any show that tells me how great the feds are. Sean King, there's an email.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
Okay, do you want to read it?
I get these. I'm signed up as you. There was like right after Ferguson, before I knew anything about Sean King. Not gonna lie. I mean, like right after the initial protests began, and I just got on Twitter first time. I'm actually blocked by Sean King on Twitter now.
I unfollowed him, and after he followed me, and I was following him.
But I still get the
you have, like, you and I, and everybody.
He had us he would sign up for these emails if you want to be part of change, and I want to be part of change. But the thing is that I still get them, and I just got this email, and it says some great news to brighten your day, and I click it, going, hey, something. A cop's been convicted. Gotta pay attention. This is what I do. And it says, hey, everybody, I hope you're doing well. Later this evening, I'm receiving an award for some of the criminal justice work I've done over this past year. I'm just like, why is that brightening?
And it gets worse. There's 3 more sentences of this.
I'm here to speak on how much of that we did together. Yeah. Thank you so much for your support and tenacity. By the way, that's highlighted not by me. It's highlighted in the email. We've gotten so much done together. At least he says together, but it's like he fucking writes for The Intercept now. What the fuck? Yeah, The Intercept, that got reality winner. Don't even get me started. That's a whole nother topic.
Well, we could do a whole show of outlets that you.
I don't like it here.
Stay away from. Well, I mean there's.
But you're right. There are some that I actually do. I mean, not like, but like I'll use a couple Atlantic articles, even though that thing is not rag. I mean, I'm in an article they interviewed me for it, and I read it. I'm like, yo, change this in the article. This is wrong. Change it. And what ended up happening, it was a woman who happens to be a Native woman who's an alleged activist who shames her own people and goes after us as black people. Lauren Schiefeld is her name. And she's in the article as another activist from the Black or Native collective who pushed for Native and Black solidarity. She's literally doing the opposite. So, because that's what the article is about. It's about, Red and Black unite, and that's Gal knows, and some people listen to the show. That's a big part of my work is Black and Native solidarity. So get her out of here. Get her off the article. You're making yourself look bad because this is just not true. They never did. They never changed it. But I'll use the articles, the Atlantic sometimes. Gal will use other outlets that are,
Or
I use the outlet. Yeah, there are some that I won't touch.
Oh, of course.
They piss me off. There's those that I won't touch because they're just,
the Federalist,
Breitbart.
Breitbart.
The Daily Stormer.
Yeah.
The Daily Caller. Some that are just not reputable. Some that you just look at and you go, wow, people believe this. There's that. Then there's, I'll use CNN if I read it. I tweet, right? I make sure that what I'm doing, but I'm also going to be the first one to call them out.
Exactly.
Maybe not the first one, but I have no problem calling him out. I have no problem calling out Don Lemon for being Don Lemon.
Uncle.
I have.
This word offends you? You offend, brother. Get off the screen.
Right. Oh my God. There's a meme I saw a couple years ago, and it was like somebody asked, "Why do we need sociology?" And then somebody posted Don Lemon's "Why we need sociology," and then it has all his fucked up quotes about, black on black crime, and it's like, holy fuck, dude, you just. So yeah, I'll use CNN. But do I believe it as soon as they say it? Nuh-uh. I teach my students. I teach everybody I know, not even just my students, my family, anybody who's willing to listen. First of all, you use multiple sources.
Mm-hmm.
So who's the writer? Pay attention. Don't believe everything that you see. Things along those lines. So
it's true. And this is why we have a producer, because he tells us of things that are going on while we're on the show, or people in the chat who have questions or comments. As I saw yesterday, and I think you saw it too, Jason Kessler, the one who set up the Charlottesville Day of Terror, they verified him on Twitter, which is, to me, not surprising, because they keep verifying racist people of the left or the right or the middle. So with the Trump train going along, that's not surprising to me at all. It's sad, but not surprising.
Normalizing it.
Yeah.
Should have already. It's already been normalized, but even more so.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's I think normalizing should be like the word of the first hour of the show, because you look at the normalization of U.S. politics. If you just vote it out, then the problems will go away. Normalization of the police. We should trust them. They're heroes. The military. The lack of color on screen and behind the scenes in Hollywood.
And that's all normalized. Of it's connected.
Yeah. It's the same hand, folks. It's not two hands.
And not even, you're right that it's the same hand, but the other thing to pay attention to with it, why I say it's connected, is that they're all socialization agents. And so, when we're little and we're watching Disney, we're being socialized to think natives are savages, or black people are savages, the way that they have always been portrayed in these different fucking Disney movies, or anything. It's not Disney, Gal, there are others.
Oh, that's pretty bad. They're pretty dang bad.
Disney's the biggest one, of course. To see Disney and Fox are coming together. Disney and Fox are, originally they were talking about how much would make us down to 4 instead of 5. Corporate, shared monopoly that owns everything we touch in the media, textbooks, everything. Mm-hmm. But the socialization of where where we get stereotypes, where we get beliefs, and the realization that 65% of white Americans never come in contact with somebody who's not white, and so all they're getting is what they're seeing on TV, what they're seeing on Fox, what they're hearing from Rush Limbaugh. Why are they still listening to it? Yeah, that's a good fucking question. I wish we had that answer, because there's not, because they hate people. They're taught that divide, that they're better than another group, and they want to continue that belief. It's, going back to Johnson, Lyndon LBJ, and his quote that, if you convince a white man that he is better than using the N-word, which don't use, he'll continue to vote for you and give you all his money. And that's exactly what happens, and that's exactly where we're at. So we see that start at such a young age, even before they're in school, through socialization from the media. I've been listening to And I say that because it was when I was like on vacation. I started listening to an audiobook by W. Kamau Bell, and he talks a lot about the media. His whole point is the media. And he talked about, Doc McStuffins. Is that what it is? I'm not going to lie. I don't watch these shows, but it's a kid's show for very young children. And it's a black child doctor is how she's portrayed. And I do remember when they threatened to they said they were going to cancel the show. I think it's Nickelodeon. And there was this huge outrage from the black community because that was the only representation, this idea that that there could be black doctors. And it's a legit argument, and they did keep the show. But even something at that young, where you have children who look at that representation and they say, okay, I can be a doctor instead of what they would generally see being stereotyped, is huge for children and so rare for children of color. You see it's rare for women of all colors, seeing women in strong roles that aren't just most girls, even and still today, most girls are presented in children's literature and television as passive, as they're not supposed to leave the home. They're still supposed to do cooking and cleaning and not anything. You get the rare ones that get popular, like Dora. And Dora is portrayed as a strong little girl who's out, exploring the world. I always wonder where her parents are. That's another story. It's a cartoon.
Well, they making her white in the feature film, live action film.
Are they? I haven't seen anything about they can't make her white.
I do it all the time. Jesus is white for all we know.
Right.
You never see a brother or an Arab fellow playing Jesus, because that's actually who Jesus was, one or the other. But speaking of things being all connected, you talk about being stuck in a mindset, not wanting to leave it. That's how white America is. They don't want to call out white terror because that's how the country was founded. George Washington. Wait, Obama likes him. And we have a guest coming on in a little bit, Aaron Smith Levin, who was in Scientology for over 30 years. And he actually used the phrase that I use as well, talking about being aware of bigotry in America, getting out of the matrix. And he used it to talk about Scientology and how Scientology is fundamentalism. Actually, he says it's dangerous, which I completely agree with him. And he knows much more than I, or most people, because he was in it for a very long time and stuck in that. As some people say cult, others say church. I say it's both, because technically, people do believe it is church, but it is also a cult. And you're talking about sociology and the word social. The way that things are now, and I'm just talking about, these are not our politics, these are not our ways, this is not our ideology, and how the top in this society get everything, they control everything. That's just how it is. Well, in black society back in the day, before white people came over to Africa, there's a gentleman by the name of Mansa Musa. He happens to be the richest person ever to live on this planet. He had estimated about $400 billion, and he gave so much of that money away to other people and other societies, other nations. So this stuff that we're beholden to, this is not our stuff, black folks. That's one reason why we're still in so much trouble, because we're so colonized, stuck in the matrix. You don't want to leave the matrix because it's comfortable. It's what we know. We don't want to know anything else. Let's just not make things worse. All that stuff. Apparently, okay. So
I had to look that shit up. That would have pissed me off, and I hate Dora.
Due to public pressure, Michael Bay, who's one of the great...
Why would you have Michael Bay direct?
He's one of the great, awful movie makers of all time, whatever that means.
Yeah, but you're blowing shit up.
Yeah. Pretty Girl and Explosion. That's the Michael Bay film.
Maybe that's where the rumor of the white actress came from, but no. We'll be Hispanic and we'll be a teenager instead of being a 7-year-old child, which makes sense.
And this is why I get 2 sources, because I saw a couple tweets about it.
Pulled up all the sources that haven't even mentioned it, because it's not even been a month since it's been announced.
Well, that's a load off my mind.
Nick Stoller will be, and who will be the director, who also directed like the Muppets.
The Muppets. Which one? There's like 40 of them.
Oh, right. I'll just tell you. I had to look. Like, you cannot.
It's that's normal to me. It's almost applicable to have them actually be the color and the race that they actually are in the book or the original show or what have you. Jesus Christ is always white.
Oh, I know.
All you have to say, Jesus Christ, the most famous man to ever live, right or wrong, whether you believe in him or not, he walked the planet.
He did, and he was not white.
He was not white. Megyn Kelly, who's now on a liberal network, the NBC out of the MSNBC, said on live television, Jesus is white. And Santa is too.
I was about ready to say, you're talking about the same way that Santa was white.
Yep. St. Nicholas was Turkish. So, the lies that we tell our children. And I mean, you say representation because it matters so much. When I was a kid, and my mother was white, and then she sadly passed really early on. So I did not have a mom. I did not have a mother figure. And I didn't know enough about black women because you're so colonized as a young black man growing up. I see Claire Huxtable. I'm like, get him, Claire. Get him, Claire. Strong black woman, intelligent, great job, at least on the show. Great husband, great family, beautiful kids. That was a huge influence on me. So he showed me, black women do whatever they want. Do whatever they want. They can be whatever shade. Lisa Bonet, lighter skin, I wish I'm trying to remember one of the adult kids on the show. I don't know their real names. It's Sonia. I don't know her real name, but
Malcolm Jamal.
I mean the girls. Malcolm Jamal Warner.
Thank you. That was driving me nuts.
Yeah.
Warner.
He did a cool show with Alfonso Ribeiro. If I remember, no, wait. I think he did some. It was a decent show. I think it was Malcolm and Eddie Griffin, right?
Yeah.
There was another show that has nothing to do with this, but I'll say it because I miss it. Alfonso Ribeiro, James Harvey from Fresh Prince, and LL Cool J. That was the shit. The only last few seasons you can, if you're, black TV, we don't have that much of that anymore. That was beautiful. That's another thing. Where are the black TV shows?
Right.
They canceled the Carmichael show because they wouldn't get the Negro to jump as high as they wanted him to. They said, do this. I'm not doing it. And he left and they canceled the show. That was it. That's been going on since, they let us on TV and actually have a show. Richard Pryor. No, it's too much, Richard. It's too much.
Dave Chappelle.
Tone it down. Dave Chappelle. Send him right back to Africa. At least mentally.
I was going to say, yeah.
I can't deal with you. I need to go home. Y'all are too much.
Have you watched his stand-up that he's come back on Netflix?
I did, and it's good. To me, it's like watching the basketball fans out here, but it's like watching Michael Jordan with the Wizards. It's like, you're still dang good, better than most, but that ain't the Chappelle I remember.
Thank you. Okay, that's why I asked you. Because you're right, it was good, but at the same time, I was like, it's not the same.
That, and there was a rape joke in there that wasn't funny, and like 99 out of 100 rape jokes that men tell should have never been told.
Completely, yeah. That's what made me uncomfortable, of course.
Anti-nativeness, ignorance, also. Mm-hmm. I think there was some, there was some trans stuff in there, which is why it's so good that we had some wins. I shouldn't say we. I'm cis, but I'm just saying, as marginalized people, we got some wins, and the trans community has more power Yeah, but there need to be, speaking of representation, there need to be much more shows about transgender people, especially transgender people of color, especially Native people, because they were the first ones to realize, wait a minute, there's more than two genders. In fact, there's more than three genders. And it's a beautiful thing. They got us thinking now in this society, oh, they're freaks. Don't let them use the bathroom. Doesn't everybody need to use the bathroom? Humans? I thought that was a necessity. We couldn't control. No. We can't control the fact that we have to go to the bathroom. We can control when we do, but we have to use it. No, not them. So very important, trans representation. And the next segment is a little weird. And I'm a recovering white Christian, okay? So I was in a cult myself. It's called White Christianity. So when Aaron Smith Levin comes on, he's going to talk about the cult he was in, Scientology. And I remember watching, I told him this before he was nice enough to agree to come on. And I saw Going Clear, the documentary. I remember watching it at the time, and I knew a little bit about Scientology, and it's like, wow, it's such a wild faith and religion. But my gosh, that's just some nutty stuff. And look, Christianity is nutty. So I'm not saying one's nutty and one isn't, but that, and he was saying, by the way, if you have YouTube, which I think most people do, if you have the YouTube, go on the YouTube and check out Growing Up in Scientology. It's Aaron's YouTube channel. If you want to know anything about Scientology, check that channel out. He talks about so much about it, and it's very, very informative. He does a great job. He talks about one video. It's about rape culture and Scientology, and how if someone rapes somebody in Scientology, the person who is the victim, if they tell, they're kicked out of Scientology, that type of thing. Very incredible stuff, and I don't mean that in a good way. So this is a couple of people leaving comments on his social media. This is some random person. This one is a random person saying this to him. The Scientologist, random person. Direct quote from that person. Go to your wife. Go to your kids. And then go blow your fucking head off. I feel sorry for you and your family. Don't let me catch you in the street. I'll show you what word you can use when you're begging for mercy. Your suppressiveness doesn't amaze me, but it's the F word used for gay people. And then at the end, it's agatory. So that's, but your blank does. Your suppressiveness doesn't amaze me, but your blank does. That's very nice. And then the other one, I thought this was even more interesting than the first one, because this one is from a leading member of Scientology in the community in Clearwater, Florida, which is a hub of Scientology. Said member would constantly tell Aaron, who was told, tell him, hey, Aaron, friend request this person, but block these people, and he'd keep telling him these things. And he'd always send friend requests to Aaron from himself. So apparently he needs to be hugged more. But this is a direct quote from him. Leading member of Scientology in Clearwater, Florida. You're a cocksucker. You're a cocksucker bottom feeder. Oh, no. He just called him out like this. You cocksucker bottom feeder. You are pitiful, and I feel sorry for you and your family. It's very nice. So if you leave Scientology, this is what happens to you. Very, very scary. He says, as a non-Scientologist, there's nothing you can say to a hardcore Scientologist to change their mind. And you can get a Scientologist to do anything because they use so many fear tactics and threats. We're going to kick you out of the church. You can't be a part of this amazing thing. We're saving the world. You can't be a part of it. And people, I'm sure he's gotten the question 400 times. Why were you in it for 30 years? Over 30 years. Well, because of the things I just mentioned. Those fear tactics and all that brainwashing. And if you are a citizen of the United States and you believe in the gobbledygook that America feeds you, you have absolutely no right to talk about Scientologists and the brainwashing that they are stuck in. And I'd like to say this now before he comes on, because I know it's a very sensitive subject. Aaron had a twin brother, Colin, and twin brother left the church. He just he became disillusioned, and after his brother scored high on some kind of e-meter test or reading how they read people in their auditing sessions, if you know anything about Scientology, and then he did amazingly well, but then David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology, changed the test. And then the second time his brother does the test, he does horrible on it. So then that led to him leaving the church eventually. So he leaves the church. And then Aaron starts writing reports, because you're supposed to write reports on other people in Scientology or outside of it if you're doing anything against Scientology. I think he started writing them when his brother was still in it, and then he kept writing them. So they didn't speak anymore because his brother was listed as a suppressive person or an SP. So this is his twin brother. They didn't even speak for years. And his brother suddenly dies in a car accident. And Aaron is broken up beyond repair, understandably so. And I know a lot of people in activism or religion or both, and I would say Aaron is of both now, of fighting back against religion using activism. Don't speak to their family sometimes after they start doing these things, because they believe in something so much, and then obviously their family so often doesn't, and then they get shamed for it. Speaking from experience, I have 4 siblings. I don't talk to any of them. I know Gal has similar experiences in her family. She says she hasn't spoken to her brother in 7 years. And I can only imagine if I got a call, one of my 4 siblings died in a car accident, I'd lose my mind. I hadn't seen them in years. I still love them. I am a Christian still, I will admit, because black people practice Christianity I think it was the first century, once AD became the year that we follow, because a African brought Christianity to Africa, but that's just my particular ideology. And I pray for my siblings, all 4 of them. I still think about them. I hope they do well in their own lives. But, when you go down those routes of religion and or activism, in my case activism, and the fact all 4 of them have shamed me for my own debilitating disease of chronic fatigue syndrome, those who know me close, that's what I have. And they've said, "Oh, I don't believe you. You're faking it. It's not that bad," etc., etc. I mean, not to go on a little story of Nolan, but I literally almost died from this disease, from slamming stimulants, prescribed medication, just to make sure I would stay awake and be able to work and provide for myself. But and this was during Christmas, I almost died on Christmas Day. So my family still said, "No, you're faking it. It's not real. It's on your head." And then, of course, the activism stuff added on to it. "Oh, you're racist against white people." And I said something about my grandfather, my birth grandfather. And I remember looking through the yearbooks of my mother's high school years, because he coached the football team at Anaheim High School that my mother went to. And I never saw any players of color. And this is the 60s in Anaheim, California. So obviously there's a little bias there. But I just said, that was a little racist of my birth grandfather. I never met him. But then my family was like, oh, you can't say that. That wasn't racist. Really? So I get where Aaron's coming from, long story short. And this is very excited to talk to him because they have so much money. Scientology. It's like the Catholic Church.
It's a small population, too. I think a lot of people... I know I had to look up the numbers. Now Scientology claims they have 10 million members worldwide, but
yeah, I don't buy it.
It's about 25,000 now. It was 45,000 in 1990 of individuals who identified themselves as Scientologists. That doesn't necessarily mean there aren't more. There probably, there absolutely will be those that don't maybe necessarily identify themselves out loud. In 2001, it had increased to 55,000. By 2008, it was down to 25,000. And by 2014, it was still at 25,000 is the number. So estimates are that there are no more than 40,000. It's a very small number percentage-wise for, 7 billion people. But now you can talk about, the small percentage of people, but then you can also then look at the amount of money. You've got to be, one of the things that I haven't looked a lot into the recent things. I haven't seen the recent documentaries. I studied the shit out of them in the early 2000s after I learned about the Lisa McPherson death or murder, depending on how you want to look at that, of course. And that was my first introduction really into it, other than, knowing that Tom Cruise was a Scientologist early on. Well, early in the 2000s at least.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched, I haven't seen Going Clear. I've
got to. It's so good.
I've
and
read
everybody's
stuff.
seen it because television, the shows I like that you have to watch. No, I'm kidding. But it is a great documentary. Explain something.
I've never heard a bad thing about it. It's one of those. There's always somebody that I respect that has something negative to say about something that needs to be watched, and I can say I've not seen that with Going Clear. I just was going to be honest and say I haven't seen it. I do know, of course, about Leah. Why can't I never pronounce her last name?
Leah Remini.
Yes, Leah Remini, and her show. And the attention that it's brought back, bringing it back into the news cycle, or at least pop culture cycle, other than, if people think of Scientology and they don't hear about it regularly, the only thing they think of is crazy fucking Tom Cruise.
Yep.
Anybody who was a fan of South Park in the early days, when it was good, we've had this discussion already, but even when it was decent, at least, I think that one of the things that always stood out to me was Isaac Hayes had no problem.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
I was like,
How
that's
you
not
doing?
Isaac Hayes.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. We hear you just fine, Aaron.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh wait, you can't hear
Can
us.
you hear us?
This is Miss
All right, hold on.
here messing with the feed. Usually it's the FBI messing with our feeds, right, Cal? This is Scientology.
Yeah.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We
Yes.
can hear you fine.
Can you hear us?
Very quietly, unfortunately. Hold on. Oh, wait. Hold on. How about now?
Yeah. Can you hear us fine?
Yep, I can hear you guys just fine.
Just perfect. Okay. Aaron Smith Levin, thank you so much for being on Who's Culture and letting us know about such a bizarre faith in terms of how it is practiced and how much they suppress the people who leave the church, such as yourself.
Well, it's my pleasure.
And you can follow Aaron on Twitter, Growing Up in SCN, Growing Up in Scientology. It's Growing Up in SCN on Twitter. And Aaron, I have to ask you the first question on my mind. You said Scientology views itself higher than everyone else. That's it's people, and it's in terms of also society, the U.S. government, the world. You guys are, or I should say, Scientologists. They say they're saving the world, but you have dealt with this, and a lot of Scientologists have. The disconnection from family members and loved ones. Have you found that more people choose to stay in Scientology than stay connected to the people they love and take that choice of the latter?
Well, when you say, do more Scientologists choose to stay with Scientology, I guess it's a little funny question to answer, because if they're in Scientology, then yes, they've made that decision.
Oh, there you go.
But the thing is, a lot of people do actually leave Scientology, and it's one of the things people constantly, especially because of the show, a lot of people are regularly asking the question, what can I do to help bring Scientology down? What can I do? And it's amazing that people are so interested in contributing to that effort, but the answer I most commonly give them is, don't worry about it, guys. Scientology's doing a pretty good job of taking itself down as it is. I mean, no one's joining Scientology these days, except for maybe some Russians and Venezuelans who are looking to get religious visas to come to the U.S.
Oh, my.
I think more and more people are waking up and realizing that the lie they've been believing is not more important than the family they've disconnected from. But, I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I also get contacted frequently by people who are still in Scientology, who do not believe in Scientology anymore. They are watching Leah's show, but they have to still pretend like they're in. They don't want to rock the boat. They can't say anything publicly. They can't friend me on Facebook because they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to lose their family. They don't want to lose their friends. And so Scientology really does have this hold on people, especially since most of the people who are in Scientology have either been in for decades or they were born into it. And they get to a point where the entirety of their life is inextricably linked to Scientology and the network of Scientologists. So it makes it very, very hard for people to leave, which honestly is one of the reasons why the people who have left and speak out about it, it's kind of a ballsy thing to do, because Scientology is going to come after you, and everyone you've ever known is going to distance themselves from you.
That's a sense I seem to get from studying more and more about Scientology. We were talking about this before we went on the air, that Marty Rathburn, who was an enforcer that Scientology would use in terms of scare tactics and coming after people who talk bad about the church, he left the church, was just like you, Aaron, saying how evil the church was and how it needs to come down, and now he's gone back.
Yeah, so this is a funny one. I wish I or anyone could say that they actually truly understand what it is that's happened with Marty. I've heard, obviously, the easy assumption is the church gave him a hell of a lot of money to completely reverse himself and contradict every criticism he's made of the church over the last 10 years. An explanation that to me honestly makes a little more sense is that if you look at Marty's history in Scientology, the guy has never been completely mentally stable. Really? The guy has left and come back to Scientology 3 times.
Wow.
That takes some real mental gymnastics to completely change your mind about a subject 3 times and then change it back. I think Marty, I think it's a combination of the two. I mean, perhaps the church offered him some incentives. I don't think he's truly back in the Church of Scientology, but he is doing what the church, he is working. He's doing the bidding of the Church of Scientology. He sat down for a series of 30, 40, 50 interviews, or maybe a couple giant interviews that they've cut up into 30, 40, 50 different videos. He has sat down with the church and recorded all these videos slamming everyone that has actually been his friend and supported him for the last 10 years. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. But I wouldn't, I guess I'm kind of rambling. I don't think he's literally back in Scientology. I just think he's doing Scientology's bidding for them. But it's not like he's back in the church getting auditing again, that kind of stuff.
That's, well, there's that zaniness that I was talking about. That's this stuff you don't normally hear about anything. And now I've been watching some of your videos and some of the work you do. following it, I thought there was a contract that Scientologists had to sign when they, like, as speaking as a Christian, you say the prayer that Jesus Christ is your Savior. But I thought there was a contract you had to sign when I'm a Scientologist now, and there's a billion-year contract. But then I saw one of your videos, you said, no, there's no contract. It's all verbal.
Let me explain.
Go ahead, please.
So there's something called the Sea Organization.
Sea Org, right?
The Sea Org. That's where they have the billion-year contract. Very, very few Scientologists are members of the Sea Organization. The billion-year contract is really just symbolic. I mean, it's not legally enforceable. It was just something they came up with as like a symbolic commitment. I'm committing. Scientologists believe that as spiritual beings that they call thetans, you never die. You just keep coming back lifetime after lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
It's different than the concept of reincarnation because there's no specific purpose to it. It's not like you're trying to learn a different lesson in each life, according to Scientology. You just can't ever die. That's all. So when this body dies, you go through some gymnastics in the between lives area, and then you pick up a little baby body, and you forget everything that happened before, and you grow up all over again. So Scientologists believe that we come back lifetime after lifetime. And they also believe that by doing Scientology's Bridge to Total Freedom, you will be able to remember your past lives. And they believe that if you join the Sea Org in this lifetime and you do Scientology, that when you die, you'll just pick up another body and go back into the Sea Org in 18 years. So the motto of the Sea Org is we come back. And that's why you have a billion-year contract. You're basically saying, this is what I'm going to do forever. But that's only for the Sea Organization. And in all of Scientology, there's probably only about 5,000 Sea Org members, and there's probably 35 to 40,000 Scientologists. And so, yeah, it's not like when you get into Scientology, they put a contract in front of you for a billion years.
Okay. Well, thank you for clearing that up. That explains it much better. And you were in Scientology for over 3 decades. Now, I don't know if you know this, Aaron, but I am 30 years old myself. So that's a long time. When you look back on all those years in the church, what comes to your mind?
It's funny. I look back on my experience in Scientology as a largely positive experience, which would surprise a lot of people. But that's because, my mom got into Scientology. I'm only 37. My mom got into Scientology when I was 4. I started working for the Church of Scientology full-time when I was 12. I stopped working for Scientology full-time when I was 26. And then I was just kind of a normal public Scientologist for a while. And I only officially left Scientology a few years ago. So I am not sitting here in front of everyone saying, let me tell you a story about how terrible my life was in Scientology. I'm interested in having a more nuanced and meaningful conversation than that. I'm more interested in explaining what is the real Scientology experience? What is it like? Why should people be wary of Scientology? Why should you not want your family to be involved in Scientology? In many ways, I feel like my personal experience, I dodged a lot of bullets. The story that I told about my twin brother and I on Leah Remini's show is obviously heartbreaking. The disconnection that my wife and I have experienced from her side of the family is, of course, heartbreaking. But my Scientology experience was much greater than just those 2 issues. And because I've in life, I've turned out pretty well. So it's hard for me to look back on everything that I went through and say, this was all bad. And so let me see. But your actual question to me was, when I look back on it, what was the actual question?
Well, when you look back on it, what comes to your mind? Those 30+ years in Scientology.
Right. So because I was so young when my mom got into Scientology. Let's bring it down to more like 15 years of actual involvement on my own determinism. I got to be honest, they were not bad years. When I compare those years to what other people my age were doing, I go, okay, yeah, my life was a lot different than theirs. But there's certain things I was able to take away from that experience that did serve me well later in life. Work ethic, responsibility, accountability, all that kind of stuff. In many ways, even though I worked full-time for the church for 15 years, there were many ways in which I didn't quite buy into all of the BS that your average Scientologist might have bought into. Really? So as far as what stands out the most, they were all the hard work. I mean, literally for almost 15 years, I was working 110 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. So eventually that becomes your new normal. You don't realize that is not normal. So when I finally left the Sea Org and went back into the real world, I literally didn't know what to do with myself working a 40-hour week. I literally did not know what to do with myself having an hour lunch break. Like, I would eat lunch in 5 minutes, and then I'd be like, what the hell are we supposed to do now? Just sit here and twiddle our thumbs? I don't understand. I spent such a long period of my life in a state of mind where it was not okay to be unproductive at any time. So, that sounds like this sort of a brainwashing element. Like, dude, that's crazy. But at the same time, if that's how you approach things and then you go out into the real world, it's not exactly hard to, have to report to work for 40 hours a week when you're used to working 110. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why in my videos on the YouTube channel, which is Growing Up in Scientology, you'll never actually hear me just sitting there bitching about Scientology. I'm usually talking about specific topics. I'm trying to explain how Scientology views various things. And because those are the kind of conversations, honestly, I don't think you hear often enough. You hear people want to talk about Xenu. You hear people want to talk about Tom Cruise. You hear people want to talk about various things that sound kind of sensational and sexy, but don't really reflect what day-to-day life in Scientology is. And, my whole mission is sort of to give everyone full disclosure, right? Scientology doesn't tell you what they believe when you walk in the door. I like to explain to people what Scientologists really do believe. And if after you hear all of the craziness that is Scientology, someone decides to be a Scientologist, I'll be like, more power to you. At least you know what you're getting into,
That's true. And a lot of people everybody has to go into the church to find out, what are you getting yourself into? What are we going to believe by accepting this faith?
And that's the problem. It's honestly one of the problems is even if you walk in the door to find that out for yourself, you're not going to get the answer. They have to lie to you about what they believe. Fully half of everything they believe is highly confidential within the world of Scientology. They're literally not allowed to tell you.
And speaking on that, and we had like one Tom Cruise question, because even whether you like pay attention to celebrityism or, like celebrities or not, he is a special case. He is not a boring man. Okay. So looking at him and in the Church of Scientology, you can get lost trying to swim through his mind. The dude is a trip. What is your opinion on the man and the way he sees Scientology and the church sees him? But then also, I want to add to this because I remember seeing this in one of your videos. Cruise thinks that there are more levels of Scientology that he hasn't been able to get to, but those don't exist. Does he lose? Is he just so angry about that? What's the situation there?
He doesn't know they don't exist.
Was he angry he can't get to them?
Nobody can get to them. So here's, let me see. So the first question, so I have three questions, like how does Tom, well, which one do you want me to answer?
Oh, yeah, it's how interesting this man is. Just in terms of, for now, is he upset that he can't reach those levels that, of course, don't exist?
Right, so here's what he believes, because this is what all Scientologists are told, and it doesn't even occur to them that it wouldn't be true. They believe that L. Ron Hubbard, before he died, released up through OT8, Operating Thetan Level 8, to all the Scientology public for them to do. And they believe that before he died, he fully wrote up and compiled OT 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And that these, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, these 7 OT levels are sitting in a vault, fully prepared, waiting to be released, but they're so sensitive and so powerful that they can only be released when Scientology hits certain expansion benchmarks. And that these benchmarks are carefully designed to reflect how calm and stable the society of Earth is. And that basically Scientology has to get big enough so that the society is calm enough, right? They have this idea that society helps, that Scientology helps improve society, and get rid of war and conflict and strife and all this stuff. So when I say calm enough, I mean Scientology is big enough and doing a good enough job that the world is calm enough that it's ready for these OT levels. So this is all total bullshit. Right. None of the OT levels that Scientologists think Hubbard left behind have really been left behind. And that's why I say only a few people know that, though. Only a few people within even the Sea organization know that. Most Sea organization members also believe that these OT levels are there waiting for them. So what David Miscavige tells people is he's basically, can we curse on this show?
Yeah, go for it.
So Miscavige basically says, God damn it, you guys, I've been trying to release these OT levels for 30 years now. You guys are the reason why I can't get this done. If you guys would just get your shit together and expand these organizations and do your jobs correctly, I could finally release these OT levels that are going to save the world. And you guys are all terrible and it's all your fault. And he keeps changing the benchmarks of what needs to be done. So currently, the new benchmark is that every Church of Scientology in the world has to go and buy a 50,000 square foot building with their own local parishioner funds and fully renovate it, even though there aren't even enough Scientologists to occupy the building that they currently have. And so Miscavige tells everybody that the reason more people aren't coming into Scientology is because our buildings look too crappy and our buildings don't represent how awesome we are as a religion. And you guys have to get your shit together and get these big, beautiful buildings, and then we'll be ready to release OT 9 and 10. So Tom Cruise believes this. Tom Cruise's best friend is David Miscavige, and he doesn't think his friend would lie to him. And he honestly thinks that the reason these OT levels have not been released yet is because the Scientologists as a whole have not put their shoulder to the wheel and done their part to get all of their local churches of Scientology fully with new renovated buildings. And I guess, so my answer to your question is, Tom Cruise isn't pissed at anybody, but Scientologists who he doesn't feel are working as hard as he does. Like, he views that it's him and Miscavige versus everyone. Like, if you guys would just do what we're doing, we would have our OT levels by now.
Goodness gracious. Well, as for Miscavige, I watched his sole interview that he did a long while back with Ted Koppel. And I felt like I was watching a serial liar. I felt like I was watching a serial liar, and Koppel was his psychiatrist. Can you tell us anything about the head honcho of Scientology that the public doesn't already know?
That they don't already know, I'm not sure what they do know. But the guy is, I've been in the same room as him. I've been briefed by him. I've listened to all of his speeches that he gives to Scientologists for 15 years, but I've never actually had a conversation with him myself. But, I'm close with Mike Rinder. I'm close with Mark and Claire Headley and many other people who spend decades working with Miscavige. And the guy's just a world-class dick. He doesn't, it's easy to just exaggerate and generalize, but honestly, I'm not sure I've ever met anybody who worked with him that has ever said he seemed to care about anybody. And even if you think Scientology is nonsense, which most people do, and I do, even he doesn't seem to actually believe in it. Because if he did, he would be going out of his way to make it easy to do Scientology. And he's kind of been going out of his way to make it hard to do Scientology, And obviously to explain that, it would probably require getting into too much detail. But he's I don't imagine the guy has a friend in the world. It's got to suck to be David Miscavige these days.
Wow. I would feel bad for him, but he's such a horrible person.
I know, it's one of those things, right? Like he's done it to himself.
He really has. He really has. And the thing with his wife, who the heck knows what happened with that? And obviously, you were on Leigh Remini's show, and she was the one to bring that up, and that was the start of her exodus from the church. And you were a child, like you said, in Scientology, and you also got married and had kids while you were a Scientologist. If I'm correct. Yeah.
That's right.
And after watching your episode on Remini's show, Scientology: The Aftermath, you two were talking about how when you were children, the things that you're taught in school, because the Scientology schools that you went to, that it was only about Scientology in school. So at least it was slanted towards Scientology, if I remember correctly. Can you speak on what it is to be a kid, or what's it like to be a kid and let alone a parent in Scientology?
So, correction on something, though. I never went to any Scientology schools. And the Church of Scientology itself does not operate schools. What it does is Scientologists can open up a private school, and then they can pay. The Church of Scientology has kind of a complicated corporate structure. But one of its corporate entities is called ABLE, Association for Better Living and Education. And underneath ABLE, you have an organization called Applied Scholastics, which is kind of a front group for the Church of Scientology. It takes some of the things Hubbard wrote about education and certain educational procedures, and it takes all the Scientology words out of it, and it licenses these materials to various private schools. So there are, but honestly, even I never went to one of those schools. I'm just trying to clarify.
Right, gotcha.
There are private schools run by Scientologists that use some Scientology info, but even I never went to one of those schools. So I went to public school up until the 6th grade. My mom took us out. We did homeschool for the 7th grade. That was the last year I had any formal schooling. I joined staff after that, full-time working for the church from then until the age of 26. So, when I said earlier that for me, in some way, I dodged a lot of bullets, because my time spent in Scientology, working for Scientology, I always had my mom there with me. I always had my brother there with me. So I was never cast off alone by myself to fend for myself. I always did have, a parental figure there looking out for me and protecting me. A lot of other people my age who went through what I went through did it alone without any parents and had a much, much harder time of things. So for me personally, in many ways, I sort of just luckily was able to take some of the best things out of my experience and avoid some of the darkest things that other people who walked a similar path went through. So sometimes some people wonder why I sound so positive about my experience. And a lot of it just comes down to pure dumb luck and the fact that I did have a parent with me during that time. So now by the time I had kids, my wife and I were still Scientologists in good standing, but I never had any interest in introducing my kids to Scientology. And we never mentioned it to them. They've never done any Scientology courses. They've never had any Scientology auditing. And if it weren't for the fact that, Leah Remini came to our house to shoot the TV show, they probably never would have even heard the word Scientology before.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is something else.
I mean, and that says something because I was still in Scientology when we had our kids, and I still had no interest in exposing them to it. It kind of shows how you can be really two-minded about it. Like, I sort of still identified as a Scientologist. I still felt that Scientology had, for the most part, been a helpful experience to me. But at the same time, I was aware that there was enough dangers and pitfalls in the subject in regards to children that I didn't want my kids to have anything to do with it.
That's extraordinary.
It's kind of weird. Even as I say it, it sounds weird.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I remember hearing, I think it was Mike Rinder, may have been Rathman, one of the two, because they've both been enforcers for the church. One of them said, Miscavige asked me to bug Nicole Kidman's phone. Of course, referring to the time when Tom Cruise and Kidman were together and had children themselves. Outside of your own experiences, what is the wildest Scientology story that you've witnessed, or at least one that you've been willing to share?
Oh, wildest that I've personally witnessed. So for me, again, I'm not sure I would call these as wild. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is it's remarkable how many people I've seen have seizures or pass out while working for the Church of Scientology. I know that sounds kind of like random and off the wall, but I swear to God, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a nutrition thing. I don't know if it's a sleep thing. I have seen so many people just fall down and have I don't know if it's an overwork thing. And again, I'm not sure if this really answers the question either, but an unbelievable percentage of Scientologists die from cancer. And I don't know if it has to do with just the constant stress that people are under. I'm not sure what kind of studies link stress to cancer, or the Scientology has a cruise ship called the Freewinds, and the people that have done construction on the Freewinds and have left Scientology have talked about all of the blue asbestos that's in the ducting and the walls of the Freewinds that has never been remediated. And blue asbestos has very high links to cancer. So it seems like it seems like I almost don't even know any Scientologists who've died from anything but cancer, and which directly contradicts with the idea that Scientologists have that doing Scientology will cure you of illness and sickness and pathology and insanity and all this stuff. But I don't have any of those cool celebrity stories like Marty Rathbun does.
Oh my! That's pretty remarkable, and it's hard to think of a more scary and dangerous disease as cancer. Yeah. That's incredible.
And the thing is that Scientologists at the upper levels of the bridge, they believe that cancer is caused by these thetans, these body thetans, these spiritual beings that are stuck to your body and stuck all around in the environment, and that these beings are stuck to you and are sort of being kind of parasitic, and they're affecting your thoughts and your emotions, and they're giving your body pains and illness. So a lot of these Scientologists, when they feel sick or whatever, they try to handle it by getting auditing, and they don't go to a doctor, and they don't get early diagnosis. And some Scientologists, even when they do finally go to a doctor and get diagnosed with cancer, instead of getting chemo, they continue to try to handle it with auditing by trying to find which one of their body things is giving them cancer. And I mean, even the doctor who was OTA, he'd done all the Scientology that was available. He was L. Ron Hubbard's doctor. He died of cancer. The guy in charge of taking care of L. Ron Hubbard died of cancer. And so I know not necessarily in response to what's the craziest thing you've heard, but it's one of the most disturbing things that I when I look back, hindsight, and I look at everything that happened in Scientology, is this disturbing thing of not just getting medical situations diagnosed and thinking that you can handle it with auditing. It directly leads to people dying unnecessarily.
That's about as crazy as I could think. So wow. That my mother died of cancer when I was 8 years old. So I'm thinking if she was just using an e-meter instead, wait, why aren't you using chemo or drug? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Gal and I, my co-host, we're no strangers to having people follow us. Since you've left the church, how often are you and your family actually spied on?
I've never been able to catch them in the act, but here's where it gets creepy. After I was in... Oh, by the way, you mentioned seeing my episode in season 1. Did you happen to see last night's episode?
I did not. I've heard some chatter about it on Twitter. Could you share what the chatter is all about?
Well, the chatter it was a review. I won't even be able to do it justice. So there was a review from 4 of us from season 1. And then it was a story of one of the women who appeared in season 2 and had been disconnected from her mother. Her mother watched the show and left Scientology and came on the show to basically apologize to her daughter for ever picking Scientology over her. And it was really a real tearjerker. By the way, if you jump into the Supporters of Leah Remini Facebook page, that show is live streamed on the page and you can actually watch it in there.
Oh, very cool.
So so after the episode aired in season 1 of my episode, the church the same night puts up a hate website on me. But the information they put up in the hate website made it obvious they'd been following me for quite a while. And that's just creepy as shit, right? And I'm talking about things not like, oh my God, they found me doing stuff. I mean, one of the businesses I have on the side is house flipping. And they had taken not only had they taken photographs of the people that we'd hired to do some of the work, but somehow they'd gotten their names and their identities. I didn't even know these people's names and identities because I wasn't the one who hired them. And they found that some of them had criminal records and posted their mugshots on this website. And they acted like this was a bad thing, like somehow it's bad to give a felon a job. But I'm like, wait a second. So not only is the church following me to know which house I bought, but then they're following me they're somehow showing up to the job site, getting photographs of the people who work there, getting their names, and finding their criminal history and publishing their mugshots to somehow shame me. That's pretty nasty. And then I have Scientology friends who have secretly stayed connected to me. And, they're smart people. We go out of our way not to be seen in public. And then these people will be pulled in to the church and confronted with still being connected to me. And we're sitting here going, well, how the hell do they know? Like, are there cameras in the bushes? Like, which one of us is being followed? And I'm a little embarrassed to say that I've never caught them in the act because, everyone likes to think they're clever enough to catch them. But I haven't. I'd kind of like to, but I haven't.
I would imagine so. So speaking from experience, they're just continually bugging you, and you'd love to say, I got you. See, I got you. And I've seen them so often, at least in Scientology, they pretend like they don't know how to communicate with people and have never talked to another person. Like, what's your name? You know my name. What's your name?
Right.
You don't need to know that. Like, what do you
right.
Speak,
Yeah.
Speak like a normal person. And this is something I definitely wanted to ask you about, because this is my own curiosity. This is a black person in this country, because looking at Scientologists, they're oppressed. You get oppressed as you're in the church, and then if you leave the church, you're harassed even further. And I know economics has a lot to do with this, but one thing I've noticed studying a little Scientology is that I don't see a lot of people of color in the church. Isaac Hayes is the only black person I can think of off the top of my head, and he's dead. And
I'll give you some other funny examples. You have Isaac Hayes. You have Dougie Fresh, which is like, does anyone actually know?
I did not know Dougie Fresh is into. There you go.
He's been a Scientologist for decades.
Jeez.
Jada Pinkett Smith is still a Scientologist, even though Will Smith is not. Who was the girl? She played Gina in the Martin show. Hold on, I'm going to pull it up.
Tisha Campbell.
Tisha Campbell is a Scientologist.
Jeez.
I'm gonna rock your world here. Luis Farrakhan is in Scientology now.
Oh my! That would explain.
Had you not heard that before?
I never heard any of those. I thought the Jada Will thing was a rumor. I thought they were just friends with Tom. I was hoping.
Jada's a full-on Scientologist.
Really?
Brandy.
Sorry.
Brandy was in Scientology. If she's not still.
Wow.
Yeah. And Louis Farrakhan has made it a mandatory requirement for anyone getting promoted within the Nation of Islam to become a Dianetics auditor and go clear.
Oh my goodness gracious! I would say
the Nation of Islam probably accounts for the majority of people joining Scientology in present time.
Wow!
A guy who's anti-Semitic and anti-white has somehow managed to become bedfellows with L. Ron Hubbard, David Miscavige, and the Church of Scientology. I don't know who pulled that coup off, but it's been going on for about 5 or 6 years now.
I've been in rooms with people who follow Farrakhan to the letter, and the anti-Semitism is off the charts.
So if you want to wonder, I'm going to send you a link when we're done. You have to remind me if I forget. I'm going to send you a link to one of the most cringe-worthy Scientology hip-hop videos.
Oh my goodness gracious! I'm interested and scared. I'm interested.
You want to ask yourself why they're so stupid as to do this. It's because they're trying to appeal to the black community because of people like Louis Farrakhan.
Right. And 9 out of 10 times, if someone like myself, or even Gal, who's white, but you hear the words anti-white, you're pretending the reverse racism thing. No, Farrakhan hates white.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
There's that exception to the rule. Louis, right there. Yeah, he. Mm-hmm.
In fact, the Church of Scientology just gave one of Louis Farrakhan's head deputies, named Minister Tony Muhammad. They just gave him their IAS Freedom Medal, which is the same award they gave to Tom Cruise, but a slightly smaller version. Like Tom Cruise got the IAS Freedom Medal of Valor, and Tony Muhammad was given the IAS Freedom Medal.
That's disturbing.
IAS stands for the International Association of Scientologists. So I'm going to send you a link to this hip-hop video so you can have a really good laugh. And when you're done, just search on YouTube for Nation of Islam Scientology. This has created a rift even within the Nation of Islam, because so many of these guys are like, wait a second.
Why Islam, we're Muslims. Jeez.
They're like, why are you telling us to follow a white man?
Wow.
And I'm serious. This is going to blow your mind. When you go
my mind's it blew up in pieces. I'm trying to pick it up off the floor.
Well, let me get back to answering the question about black people in Scientology. Here's what I believe. Look, I was from the Church of Scientology of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a majority black city.
Right.
I was always embarrassed when a black person walked in the door because of how white everything in the building was.
Right.
Like, everything's white. The posters are white. The staff are white. The promotional materials are white. The films that you watch are white. And I had to cringe every time, someone came in the door and they were black, I almost wanted to go, I'm sorry, it's so goddamn white. And I think there's a culture problem. I mean, black culture and white culture, or urban culture and suburban culture, I don't know what the right way to describe it is, but let's not deny the fact that there's two different cultures.
Sure.
I think the culture difference is one of the reasons. If you're a black person and you walk in the door, do you feel welcome? I mean, no matter how nice they are, no matter how big the smiles on their face are, do you feel welcome? I don't think I would feel welcome. And look, in my experience, I know Scientologists who are racist, but I do not believe Scientology is racist. I do not believe you can read the works of Scientology and take from it racism. But it's just one of those things where it's almost like an inertia problem. If everyone's white, then why would a black person want to join? It just feels uncomfortable.
Wow, you know? It's black Republican? Yeah. Right,
exactly. I mean, if I'm a white guy and I know there's an all black church, I don't have to be racist to be like, oh, I'm going to feel uncomfortable. No one wants to be the only one there.
Yeah, I grew up in private schools, white neighborhood. That was my whole childhood. Can I touch your hair? The whole 9 yards. Aaron, before we let you go, we'd like you to kick off our new favorite segment. Who are we kicking out of Hollywood this week? And since there are so many Scientologists to choose from, please start us off.
Oh, I think it's easy. It's got to be Danny Masterson.
Danny Masterson.
Danny the Rapist Masterson.
Oh, man. We brought him up on a earlier show about this very thing. And I always was a little disturbed by his last name because it sounded like Danny Masturbation. So I knew that guy was dirty. I knew it.
And so I'll pick two. Danny Masterson for being for being a rapist, and Laura Prepon for being a hypocrite. Laura Prepon plays one of the main characters in Orange is the New Black. Scientology is as anti-gay of a philosophy or a religion as you can get.
And he lied about it, camera.
And yet she makes her money portraying a gay character, which is fine. An actor can play anybody. Sure. But she's getting awards from GLAAD for playing a character when she's part of a religion that literally thinks gay people are bad. I'm just putting it simply. Gay is bad. There's no way about it.
It's in Dianetics. It's in the Bible.
It's in Dianetics. It's in Science of Survival. It's in his technical writings for the next 30 or 40 years that follow. There's simply no question about it. So, Danny Masterson and Laura Prepon, get the fuck out of there.
Bye, Danny. Bye, Laura. Make another That 70s show in your basement. You're out of Hollywood. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. And anybody listening, please support Aaron and the work that he does, shedding light on the Church of Scientology and helping victims of Scientology get through all of the things that this church has done to them and still does to them, because once you leave, even more heat is turned on you. Aaron, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Aaron, you can find him at Growing Up in SCN. That's Growing Up in SCN on Twitter. And you can also find him on YouTube. Wonderful YouTube channel. If you want to know anything about Scientology, if you want to know everything about Scientology, check out Growing Up in Scientology, the YouTube channel. That's Aaron Smith Levin. Good guy. Good guy. Our first white guest and our first male guest. He made history.
He made history. Woohoo! We have so many firsts today.
Yes. Episode 6 is... Was this episode 7? 6? No, it's 6. We've done...
I don't know. I got confused. I thought it was 7, too. And then you were saying 6.
Yeah, I think it's 6. It's 6. 7's my favorite number. That's probably why I jumped to 7. But also, wonderful entertainment as well. The View from Up Here, I believe it is 5 p.m. Pacific time on Blog Talk Radio. Glenn also does the People's Weekly with Gal and I every Friday on People's Radio United. So Aaron stole my choice. He jacked my choice. I was going to use Laura Prepon because I've seen that interview where she lies her behind off about Scientology being homophobic. So I'm going to take a minute to pick another one. Gal, who do you got from Scientology you want to kick the hell out of Hollywood?
I'm still kicking Elizabeth Moss out.
I've heard that. You're right.
You're not going to go star in The Handmaid's Tale. You're not going to talk about that kind of quote-unquote cult and then still be in one.
Yeah, that's true. People haven't seen
Had it not been Handmaid's, because she's a fantastic actress.
She's great.
Had it not been for Handmaid's Tale, I wouldn't. I'd be like, she's socialized, she's raised, but then you're not going to read that. You're not going to be the star of that and still go home to your cult.
Well, and that's what Aaron kind of raised as a point of, it's this double-edged sword, but you're still making sure you're stabbed by each edge. One, you're hurting other people by pushing out this nonsense, but then also you're staying in the matrix, making sure you're ignorant as all get out. And, Laura, that's why you picked Laura Prepon to kick out, along with obviously Danny Masterson, I don't know what his name is. But Prepon, yeah, you're playing a member of the LGBT community on a very popular show, and you're homophobic by nature because of this religion that you believe in, which is in Dianetics, in the Bible of Scientology. Yeah, and Jada is out. Jada's out. I'm sorry. I
can't believe you didn't know that. I can't believe you thought
that
was a rumor.
I thought it was a rumor because I had heard things that they were friends. I know they're friends, and obviously they're both big. All three of them big players in Hollywood. I just thought it was a rumor. I thought they were thinking, and I also thought they were thinking about it, or Tom was trying to get them into it, and that was part of the reason for the marriage, either breaking up or trying to save it. But damn it, Jada, you're out. Damn it, Jada. I lost Viola Davis and Kerry Washington and Angela Bassett last year because they all jumped the Cooten train to go to the Hillary Clinton bandwagon for I'm with her. Now I'm with Jada, not Jada, anybody but Jada. I'm sorry. I'm going to start crying on air. I mean, who's next? I don't know. Somebody. I
have all kinds of people kick out, but not necessarily because Scientology.
Well, yeah, but this is, again, the point of the show. Yeah. Taking the mask off and showing Hollywood for what it is. And you said Dustin Hoffman on our last show. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, today I'm kicking Taylor Swift out. Fuck you, Taylor Swift.
Well, that could be anything.
Yeah.
Well, but for 6 p.m.
And, of course, you've got the embracing white supremacists, the refusing to denounce the KKK and the alt-right that is, taking her as their little princess. But the sending a letter to force a blog writer to remove their blog because you don't like it. Fuck you for trying to suppress free speech. You don't have to agree with it. She said it's defamation to her character. And the blog is, I'm going to post it because fuck you, Taylor Swift. It's actually from September. Swiftly to the alt-right, Taylor suddenly gets the lowercase KKK information. And I don't even necessarily agree with everything on it. It's just not the point, though. The point is it's a fucking blogger. You just brought that blogger more attention than she had gotten in the first place because, the basics Streisand effect. And on top of that, you've, got the ACLU who's defending her now. I posted the link already.
Oh.
Who's defending, not Taylor Swift, defending the blogger.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. I don't know where that's coming from today. Yeah. But anyway, defending the blogger because, trying to use your power and fame to force. I don't even think this blogger had that many views, to be honest with you, to take down their blog.
White people are fragile.
Absolutely. And so, definitely, we know Taylor Swift's fragile as fuck. Come on now.
I'll give Aaron Smith Levin and Gal credit. They're of that exception to the rule. Like the thing about Farrakhan, like you say anti-white. Yeah. Usually it's we're trying to go with the racist, reverse racism nonsense, but Aaron was right on the money. Farrakhan is anti-white. But it's 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Glenn, Canadian Glenn on Twitter, you can find him. is the view from up here. The view from up here. Wonderful show. Wonderful man. Another genuine white ally. But Jada's gone. Jada. I can't believe it. I just saw Girls' Night like 2 weeks ago. It was like the first movie I've seen in a month. I loved it. A girls' night, girls' trip, whatever it was. And I'm like, Jada's great. We love Jada. Jada's one of our favorites. Well, that's over with. And Dougie Fresh is also a Scientologist. That's depressing. But he was. We should just come out with a whole, like one of the shows that we do in the future should just be like, we study, take some time to study and just pick out all these people. Because we're going to find out eventually. We're too dang curious.
Yeah, I know.
Damn shame.
I think we should start maybe it should just be a segment on who we should keep in Hollywood. Because that's going to be much smaller.
That's true. Well, this one's fun because you get to not so much fun. It's
I know what you mean.
Out the rage and the anger, which is what the show is all about. You see, Tim, our producer, we're almost out of time, but Tim, our producer, always asks for a description of each show before the show airs. So I always put sit back and get angry and enjoy Who's Culture. It's white supremacy in Hollywood, the evils of Hollywood. Scientology, where they don't go for chemo or typical cancer treatments, they go for the E-meter. They're not going to go for the chemo. They're going to go for the E-meter.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say before we end, because I know we only have like a minute left, I'm also kicking Jeffrey Tambor out. I'm transparent.
What? Wait, I saw this. Okay.
Being investigated by Amazon following sexual harassment allegations from a trans assistant, and then has the nerve to be like, "I'm disgusted. Anybody would think I would do that with somebody who's trans." Yeah, fuck off, dude.
Jeez. At least Jade is confused. I mean, most brothers and sisters walk around confused. I got my own confusion. I don't even know about it. If anybody knows that I'm doing something stupid, please tell me. But that's just horrible, Jeffrey. We replace him. It's like Kevin Spacey. Replace him. Get an actual trans woman playing that character. Frank Underwood out of here. Get Claire or somebody else to replace him in the Oval Office. But well, we got to wrap up here because for one, we keep naming people. We'll be here till election night 2018. So. We're going to get out of here, but thanks again to Aaron Smith Levin. Again, growing up in SCN. It's his Twitter, and his YouTube page is Growing Up in Scientology. Check out both and support him. He does a lot of great work. Thank you, Aaron, again for coming on. And as always, Gal, thank you for co-hosting the show. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, and you're welcome, everybody. That's going to be the last words that I say. Thank you, and you're welcome.
Bye.